to the Golden Age of Cinema. I'm Paul Eastman. Thank you for joining me for another review of a great film. So far on the show, I've only reviewed films basically from the 1930s. So today we will jump forward in time to 1958 to a film called The Inn of the Sixth Happiness with Ingrid Bergman. I still think this is in the golden age of cinema timeline. For me, I look at the emergence of the new American cinema, basically the late 60s, where the films changed tone a lot with the anti-heroes and cynicism kind of came into film and a different kind of realism. So this film we are reviewing today is kind of at the end of the era of the great classical period, in my opinion. And let's take a look at the trailer now.
Welcome to the Inn of the Sixth Happiness. I would like to tell you about a motion picture that will be coming to this theater shortly. It is the story that I sincerely believe will find a place close to your hearts. It is the Inn of the Sixth Happiness. Yang said that everybody in China wishes you the 5 happinesses. What is the 6th happiness?
That you must find out for yourself. Each person decides in his own heart what the 6th happiness is.
So there we have Ingrid Bergman introducing you to the movie, and now we know what the Inn of the Sixth Happiness is. I love this film, and I'm reviewing it because I think it's kind of an overlooked and underrated film. This is a 1958 20th Century Fox kind of an epic. It's a biography, a Hollywood biography or a historical drama about a real person. And it's in CinemaScope and deluxe color. So it's a beautifully made film. So we should talk a little bit about CinemaScope. In the golden age of cinema, CinemaScope began in around 1953. That really was the first film. It was The Robe. If you can remember that film. That was the kind of the first CinemaScope film, and then it became quite common for films to be in CinemaScope. It was a new medium of the 1950s. So this is kind of a classic Hollywood biography film that I love. It's one of my favorite genres. I like true stories. I like films that are about real people, and the people usually get kind of idealized, and it's usually about somebody that's done, something great, had a very interesting life, or done something great for humanity, and they're usually idealized. But I like that about films, especially the biographies. They can be very inspiring. And I mentioned the new American cinema, how that changed. The films changed quite a bit in the 60s. But in the late 30s, 40s, and 50s, films, a lot of these films were meant to really inspire people. They were heartwarming, and they showed the best of humanity. And I like that about films, and we have enough realism in the news, and so this is escapism that I've always loved. And I love this film, So let's look at the stars of this film, which is a big part of the reason I like the film so much. Obviously, you have Ingrid Bergman later on in her career, and she plays the lead, Gladys Aylward, who was a British maid that went to China and was a missionary. So she carries the film pretty much. Just what can you say? She's Ingrid Bergman. And then we have this other character that's played by Kurt Jurgens. Now, this is a Chinese officer, and he's of mixed race. He has a Dutch father, so we see this inner conflict of East and West played out within him, and it's very interesting. And he becomes attracted to Gladys, and that's the romance part of the film. And he's a towering man of great stature, and a wonderful guy to watch, actor to watch. And then the third main character is the Robert Downey. His character is the Mandarin, which is kind of like the mayor of a province there, the bureaucrat. And it was his last role, and he died before the film was released. And of course, he is excellent as always. Might know him for as one of his first films was Goodbye, Mr. Chips, but a long career for Robert Downey. And as many of these Hollywood films based in the Far East, we have European actors playing Asian characters. So that's great star power, all three of these actors, and they carry the film for sure. On top of all the high production values and the deluxe color and the great score and photography and a great story about this woman make this an excellent film. Now let's quickly look at two of the reviewers that I always look at, Leonard Maltin and Leslie Hollywell. Now let's see what Leonard Maltin says. Now he only gives it 3 stars. His true story of English servant who, despite her lack of credentials, realizes her dream of becoming a missionary in China. Bergman is wonderful and Downey memorable in final screen performance. Simple, effective score by Malcolm Arnold, CinemaScope. Now let's look at Leslie Hollywell. He gives it 2 stars out of 4, which for him is a good review. He says, romanticized biopic of Gladys Aylward with lots of children, a happy ending, and everyone sensationally miscast. Somehow it all works. Even North Wales standing in for China. Yeah, that's true. It was filmed in North Wales, and I believe that it's because there was a Chinese community, so they used a lot of the Chinese that lived there as the extras and other roles, maybe. He doesn't give any excellence to any of the actors or anything. So I'll go over the plot briefly. Gladys Aylward is a British maid that is not really educated, and she has a calling to go to China as a missionary, but she's not really qualified. But anyway, she gets a position, and she goes to China, and she works as a missionary, and she becomes a foot inspector, and she learns the language, and she eventually becomes a Chinese citizen, and she is called Genai, which means one who loves people. So, and this is a true story, and she spends most of her life there. And then there is a romance plays out with the Chinese general, the Chinese officer, Kurt Jurgens. So that's the backdrop of it. And then World War II starts and other things happen, but that's the basic storyline of this film, and it's kind of an epic film. It spans from around World War I to World War II, and it's based on a biography called The Small Woman. Now let's discuss some of the themes of this film. One of the kind of themes that I see in it is this Gladys, she has this inner calling, this desire to break out of her life, of her position that she is in, and she wants more out of life. She wants to do something important. And she just has a calling, she doesn't know why, to go to China and do this. And I think we can all relate to that. So let's kind of look at a clip that shows that. And this is in the beginning of the film when she goes to the missionary, that she has written letters, and she's trying to talk them into allowing her to go to China.
I see. Well, sit down, please.
Well, you are going to use me, aren't you? You are going to send me to China.
It's quite impossible.
Why?
Look, I'm terribly sorry about this. I blame myself for not having been more clear in my letter, but
But why can't you use me?
to be a missionary in China today is frightfully difficult. I'm not speaking from hearsay. I spend 3 years there for every year I spend here at home. You don't know what you'll be facing, the filth, the squalor, the hardships in the remote areas.
Well, that doesn't frighten me. I'm strong. I'm used to hard work.
My dear girl, don't you understand? You're just not qualified. We send to China only those of our people who have very special education and experience.
I know. I've had a very ordinary schooling, and since then I've been a servant. But I've read. I've studied by myself. I worked at the Liverpool Mission on my days off.
I understood that from your letters. And I do understand the strong call you feel for China.
But it isn't enough. Thank you anyway.
Now, of course, other themes in this film are obviously the spreading the Christianity to the West, and of course we have East and West cultures meeting, as in other films that I've reviewed, and this is always interesting. And it's about not being qualified, and I sure can relate to that. Is that we all want to do things. We all want to be of use to the world and do something important. And not all of it's very hard to do that, as much as people try. And this is a story of a woman that just tried her hardest and she made it, and she really changed her life and did this and went to China and learned the language and fulfilled her inner calling and her dream, I think. And so this is the main theme of the movie, I think. But we're going to look at a scene that kind of looks at this, at all of these aspects in one scene. This is a scene where the woman that Gladys went to work with at the missionary at the Inn of the Sixth Happiness has died. And the Chinese officer, Kurt Jurgens, he goes and delivers a message to her that she will have to stop her missionary because she is not qualified. And then he discusses his interracial roots and his goals and dreams. And I think you can see it all in this one scene. So let's take a look at that scene now.
I knew you wanted it the moment it came.
Thank you. Please don't go. Oh, they don't believe in the inn. They only agreed to it reluctantly, out of respect for Mrs. Lawson's vast experience in China. Without her or a person equally qualified, the project is hopeless. Our advice is to abandon it and come to Shenzhen. In gratitude for your help to our dear colleague, we will arrange for your return fare to England. But with that money, I could open the inn. Why don't they give it to me?
They gave their reasons.
Yes. One reason, always the same one. I'm not qualified. I was a servant in England, that's what they mean. But I came here when they said I couldn't. And I'll stay here, though they say I can't.
I'm going back to Xianchang in the morning. I'll be glad to see that you get there safely.
I'm not going to leave.
You're angry and disappointed. That's understandable. But you must be realistic. You cannot stay.
I'll go to the food merchants. I'll beg them.
They will not give you credit. You will not be able to open the inn. You have no friends. You have no money. You don't know the language. We are in the most isolated part of a country, entering a period of violent conflicts from within and without. It isn't your country. It isn't your problem. You're white. You shouldn't be in China at all.
How can you say that when you're part white?
I'm half white. In your world, I can only be a second-class citizen. I chose China because here I'm allowed to be of value.
That's why I came here, to be of value.
How? By trying to make people believe what you believe? By saving souls who don't want to be saved? Who will agree to anything for an extra bowl of rice? And laugh at you once the rice is eaten. Oh, to argue about such things is to argue about shadows. The dangers that confront you, those are real. Leave now, while you still can. Go back to England where you belong.
If I feel that God wants me in China, then this is where I belong.
In that case, I'll leave you in his hands. Obviously, you don't need my help.
So my review, I give this 3.5 stars. It's a long film. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes. I think it went on a little bit too long in the end. But other than that, it's a heartwarming film. It makes you feel good about the human race. It's interesting in its East meets West observations. It is great star power. This Kurt Jurgens actor, I thought was just fantastic. I liked him so much in this. And it was romantic and touching. And it was beautifully filmed, nice music. And Robert Donay, very good. And I thought it was an excellent screenplay, a very intelligently written film. And I think it's just an underrated film. It's not a 4-star film exactly. As I say, I think maybe if it could have been edited down a little, but that's my only fault with it. But I love these type of films. And I hope that if you haven't seen it, that you give it a try. And it's interesting to see Ingrid Bergman a little bit later in her career. She had a long career, obviously, but we will look at her first film on the golden age of cinema very soon. She stars in this film Intermezzo, and I love it, and I want to share that with you. We will review that film later on. So that's it for this show. Thank you for joining me again on the Golden Age of Cinema. I'm Paul Eastman, and I will see you next time at the movies.